Luke was taken to Tatooine by Obi-Wan Kenobi shortly after the rise of the Empire and the transformation of Anakin Skywalker into Darth Vader. Believing Tatooine to be a safe place, Obi-Wan entrusted baby Luke to the care of his Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, who lived as farmers in the desert. The vast and inhospitable desert of Tatooine offered the perfect opportunity for Luke to grow up away from the influence of the Empire. Obi-Wan, for his part, kept close, living in secret to ensure that, when the time was right, he could train Luke and prepare him to face his destiny. It was a delicate balance between remaining hidden and being there to protect Anakin's son. However, this meticulous plan soon began to fall apart. The Inquisitors, Jedi hunters who served the Emperor, were sent to Tatooine with the aim of locating and eliminating any survivors of the old Jedi Order. During their search for Obi-Wan, they began to track his activities, coming dangerously close to his hideout. What they didn't expect, however, was that Darth Vader would also sense a disturbance in the Force. Without knowing exactly what it was, Vader was drawn to Tatooine, following this mysterious presence that awakened old and painful memories within him. Vader's presence on Tatooine turned the situation into a game of life and death. Obi-Wan knew he couldn't allow Vader to find Luke, so he did what he did best. He fought. The Inquisitors fell one by one before the blue blade of Obi-Wan, who, despite his age, was still one of the most skilled Jedi. However, when the time came to face Vader, the former master and apprentice met once again. Obi-Wan knew he couldn't win this fight alone, but his priority was to protect Luke at all costs. After a brutal confrontation, Obi-Wan managed to escape from Vader, taking Luke with him. However, the victory came at a high cost. Obi-Wan was badly wounded, barely able to stand. Every movement was a struggle against pain, and he knew that unless he did something quickly, he wouldn't survive for long. Even so, his mission was clear: to ensure that Luke remained safe, away from Vader's eyes, so that he could one day fulfill his destiny. Obi-Wan and Luke temporarily hid in the desert caves of Tatooine, where Obi-Wan, using his last moments of lucidity, managed to send a desperate message to Senator Bail Organa. He knew that Organa was the only person he could trust to look after Luke, since the senator knew the boy's true identity and the importance of keeping him away from the Empire. With great effort, Obi-Wan begged Organa to rescue Luke as soon as possible. Soon after sending the message, Obi-Wan felt the weight of the Force approaching. He was on the verge of death, but before leaving, he asked Luke to stay hidden until the senator arrived. Obi-Wan trusted that the Force would guide the boy when the time was right, but for now he had to stay safe. With those last words, Obi-Wan surrendered to the Force, becoming one with it, just like Qui-Gon Jinn before him. His mission was over, but Luke's fate was still in his own hands. When Senator Organa finally arrived on Tatooine, he found Luke exactly where Obi-Wan had instructed. The senator, deeply grieved by Obi-Wan's death, took Luke to Alderaan, where the boy could live under his protection. Alderaan was a peaceful planet, far from the direct control of the Empire, and Organa believed she could keep Luke safe there, alongside her adopted daughter, Leia. However, even on Alderaan, danger lurked, and Luke's connection to the Force was beginning to attract unwanted attention. Meanwhile, on Dagobah, Master Yoda was visited by the spirit of Obi-Wan, who brought him an important message. Obi-Wan begged Yoda to intervene in Luke's fate, knowing that the young Skywalker's training would need to be accelerated. Yoda then traveled to Alderaan and met Senator Organa, explaining to him the need to locate Ahsoka Tano. The senator, although reluctant at first, understood that the future of the galaxy depended on it. With the help of his contacts, Organa managed to locate Ahsoka and explain the situation. When Ahsoka learned that Anakin's son was alive and needed training, she felt a whirlwind of emotions. The pain of losing her master was still strong, but the hope of redeeming his legacy with Luke rekindled her inner strength. Ahsoka accepted the responsibility of training Luke. From the start, she realized that he had a powerful connection to the Force, much like her father. Starting training at the ideal age, Luke quickly showed progress, demonstrating natural abilities that Ahsoka had never seen in another Jedi. This early training allowed Luke to develop a deeper control of the Force, making him even stronger and more skilled than many Jedi before him. Ahsoka dedicated herself completely to the mission, knowing that the future depended on Luke's success. During one of his deep meditations, Luke had a disturbing vision. He felt the presence of someone close to him, a familiar presence that seemed inexplicably connected to him. Concentrating on the Force, Luke discovered a truth that would change his life forever. He had a sister, and she was on Alderaan. The discovery made Luke uneasy, and he couldn't help seeking answers from Ahsoka. After a moment's reflection, Ahsoka decided to tell Luke everything she knew about her story. She revealed the truth about Anakin Skywalker, his transformation into Darth Vader, and the role that Yoda, Obi-Wan, and herself played in the fight against the Empire. Ahsoka also told Luke about Leia, her twin sister, and what had happened to her family after the fall of the Republic. Luke, shaken by the revelations, knew he had to find Leia and find out more about her past. With Ahsoka's help, Luke traveled to Leia on Alderaan. Initially, the reunion between the siblings was peaceful, and Leia, still unaware of her true lineage, received Luke kindly. However, their presence together drew attention to the Force, and Obi-Wan, in his form as a Force spirit, appeared to Luke, warning him of the imminent danger. He explained that if Luke and Leia remained together for too long, Vader would sense the connection between them, which could put them both at great risk. Faced with Obi-Wan's warning, Luke made the difficult decision to stay away from Leia for a while and return to Dagobah. There, under Yoda's guidance, his training was intensified. Yoda knew that time was running out, and every moment was crucial to prepare Luke for the final confrontation with Vader. The young Skywalker learned to master the most advanced aspects of the Force, preparing himself both physically and spiritually for what was to come. During one of his meditations, Luke felt a deep disturbance in the Force. The sensation alerted him that something terrible had happened. He quickly realized that Ahsoka was in danger. Without hesitation, Luke interrupted his training and set off in search of her, following the clues the Force provided. He knew he couldn't lose his mentor and friend, especially at such a crucial time for the galaxy. When Luke finally found Ahsoka, she was badly wounded, the result of a brutal attack by the Inquisitors. Without wasting any time, Luke took her back to Alderaan in the hope that she could be healed and recovered. However, time was against them, and Luke knew that every second counted. He did everything he could to keep her alive, but he knew the fight wasn't over yet. While Luke and Leia were together on Alderaan, Darth Vader, as predicted by Obi-Wan, felt the presence of his children. The family connection was undeniable, and it filled Vader with fury. Luke, sensing the disturbance in the Force due to Vader's fury and the imminent danger, flees Alderaan with Leia and Ahsoka. Vader arrived on Alderaan and immediately ordered the Death Star to be prepared for an all-out attack. The destruction of the planet was not only a way of eliminating his enemies, but also a gesture of personal revenge against those who had hidden his children from him. Leia, seeing Alderaan destroyed and her adopted family annihilated, fell into deep despair. The pain of the loss was devastating, and she felt powerless in the face of so much suffering. Luke, connected to the Force, felt his sister's despair. The bond between them grew even stronger in that moment of tragedy. Luke realized that he could not allow any more destruction to occur and understood that his destiny was to face Darth Vader and the Emperor. He knew that the time for hiding was over and that the fight for the galaxy was up to him. Before facing Vader, Luke decided to return to Dagobah to complete his training with Yoda. He knew he wasn't yet ready to confront his father and the Emperor. Yoda, sensing the urgency of the situation, intensified Luke's training. Every lesson was vital. Every physical and mental exercise brought him closer to becoming the Jedi the galaxy needed. During this last phase of his apprenticeship, Yoda prepared him for the dark side's attempts at seduction, warning Luke of the Emperor's traps. After completing his training on Dagobah, Luke felt he was ready. He then set off to confront Vader, but when he arrived, he was faced with an unexpected situation. Vader was standing next to the Emperor, who was waiting for him with a cold, calculating gaze. The Emperor, with his oppressive presence, began trying to seduce Luke to the dark side of the Force, teasing him with promises of unlimited power and control over the galaxy. Luke felt the temptation, but his training and Yoda's guidance kept him firm. Pretending to give in to the Emperor's temptations, Luke pretended to surrender to the dark side. He approached the throne, bowed his head and, in one swift and precise movement, activated his lightsaber and struck the Emperor a mortal blow. A single blow put an end to the Emperor's tyranny once and for all. However, Darth Vader, who was furious at his son's betrayal, challenged him to an epic battle. Vader and Luke clashed in a fierce confrontation. Lightsabers clashed furiously and the tension was palpable. The fight lasted a long time, until, in a moment of vulnerability, Vader managed to disarm Luke, cutting his hand. Luke fell, feeling the physical and emotional pain of that moment. As Vader prepared to deliver the final blow, Ahsoka Tano, his former Padawan, stepped between them to protect Luke. The mortal blow that was meant for Luke ended up hitting Ahsoka, and she fell seriously wounded. Seeing his former Padawan mortally wounded, Vader had a flash of clarity. For the first time in a long time, Anakin Skywalker resurfaced. He realized that he had just killed his only apprentice, someone who had been like a daughter to him. What's more, he had almost killed his own son. This moment of clarity shook Darth Vader to the core, and the Sith Lord's cold mask began to crack under the weight of guilt and regret. Leia arrived shortly after the confrontation, only to find a devastating scene. Luke was on the ground, missing his hand, and Ahsoka was seriously injured. Despair overtook Leia at the sight of the two people she loved most in danger. She ran to try to help, but felt that time was running out. The suffering on her face was evident, and she cried out for help, feeling helpless in the face of the tragedy unfolding before her eyes. Just then, the spirit of Obi-Wan Kenobi appeared, calling Vader by his real name, Anakin. This call caused Vader to become paralyzed, and he was immediately hit by a wave of memories of his past as a Jedi, as Anakin Skywalker. He remembered his life before the darkness, the friends he had lost, his mission as a Jedi. The name Anakin brought back the humanity he had buried deep inside him. Vader, still stunned by the emotional impact of the memories, fell to his knees. He was in a state of shock, unable to fully process what had just happened. Everything he had become, all the hatred and pain he had embraced as Darth Vader, seemed to crumble in that instant. The man he had once been was beginning to resurface, but with it came an unbearable guilt for what he had done for so many years as a servant of the dark side. In the midst of the confusion, Vader gave the order for Ahsoka to be rescued immediately. However, it was too late. Ahsoka, the Padawan he had trained, his companion in so many battles, couldn't resist her injuries and died in Leia and Luke's arms. Ahsoka's death was the final blow for Vader. The emotional impact was devastating. What was left of Darth Vader dissolved, and Anakin Skywalker returned fully to consciousness, devastated by what he had lost. With Ahsoka dead and the battle over, Leia, in a moment of compassion, spoke to Anakin, trying to bring him fully back into the light. She convinced him that he could make a difference, that there was still time to repair some of what he had destroyed. Luke, also shaken by the loss of Ahsoka, joined Leia and asked Anakin to help rebuild the Jedi Order. Together, the siblings managed to convince Anakin that the only way to redeem his past was to rebuild both the Republic and the Jedi Order.